Good evening, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Robert T. Green. Welcome to the African American Athlete pre-post game podcast, sponsored by the African American Athlete, presented by Pre-Post Game. I'm Robert T. Green, CEO of Pre-Post Game, also known as a players who are paid to educate, empower, protect the athletes. That's interesting. I apologize. I'm on location right now. It's a beautiful day out here in Virginia where I'm at, and I'm doing this podcast as part 2 of an actual video I did yesterday regarding the NFL anthem, the Eagles, as well as the NFL breakdown, cut down to 85. So if you guys have any questions pertaining to those issues of sports business in general, please post them in your comment section. I'll try to answer them there. This podcast obviously is sponsored by Mr. Ricky Hampton and Mr. Michael Robinson. Check them out every Tuesday from 10 p.m. to 11 Eastern Standard Time, as they cover sports from an African American athlete perspective, current, past, and actually obviously future. So again, just getting back to part 2, obviously everybody probably, if you aware what's going on today, Malcolm Jenkins, who's also someone who's been ahead of the actual athletes or the NFL players to actually bring awareness to what we talk about, again, police brutality. I spoke yesterday about addressing certain issues. And what I also talk about is I work very hard to not to utilize my platform to give out opinions, because my opinions essentially does not matter. And the reason why my opinion doesn't matter, especially when we talk about educating, empower, protecting someone, is because at the end of the day, they're going to take your lead. If you're actually giving out information, it should be factually speaking. So I thought it was brilliant today what Malcolm Jenkins did when he basically said, or did not say, "You're not listening." Because again, the topic, the actual narrative that people continue to try to put out there to change the direction, essentially his words is being twisted and turned and based off somebody else's issue. So again, to really get down to the nitty gritty, to address the issue with the platform he has, he actually posted cards, and again, starting off saying, "You're not listening." So in order to not listen, he actually made you read, and then for you to read, you have to start to break down or try to figure out what you're actually reading. And then when you ask the question of why these guys are taking knees, and at the same time, it has nothing to do with the actual topic that someone else tried to make it be about. So I thought that was a brilliant move. I thought as an athlete that was extremely educated, and also a matter of fact, when you recognize that every different avenue you try to put yourself in a situation to make a difference, and you continue to not have your voice heard, well, since it's not going to be heard, let me see if you can see what I'm putting out there. So congratulations, and again, I continue to support athletes, and I continue to support the Malcolm Jenkins. It's one reason why I implore people not to boycott the NFL per se, simply because once again there's 1,900 people. Now, what many people haven't really figured out yet, and again I've kind of this on record, is that I never believed that literally this whole protest has anything to do with Colin Kaepernick. For the first and foremost, the reason why situation when he took a knee, a former NFL veteran, and Green asked him to take a knee and compromise instead of sitting to not show disrespect, he did that. And so the reality is, when he did that, he basically did what he was asked to do. But again, regarding the actual topic at hand, that still has not been addressed to this day for over a year now. Once again, like any other job or company, NFL has a right to make their business known by how they want to go about doing business, but at the same time, as a First Amendment right, every athlete has the opportunity to speak their mind on what they want to do. For those that continue to want to tell people of color or anybody in general what they need to do or how they need to do it, it's essential that you actually have an actual valid point in what you're making. The reality is there's a lot of people in this country that's died for the rights for other people, including Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman and so forth, and whether Rosa Parks sat down in a chair too. So at this point in this world we live in, again, I think people need to get away from thinking that because your opinion is one way versus someone else's, that yours matters more than someone else. Again, I try to specifically stay away from politics of it all, but I understand, again, as athletes and a former athlete and current owner of a business working with athletes, you have to understand that these young men have the ability to reach out across a broad scale of people, every race, color, creed, age, and literally put themselves in a situation where they can have their voices heard. In a place where if you actually take these millionaires out of the realm of basically working to help others who don't have a voice, to the voiceless, if you will, then at the end of the day, the people that have to vote coming up next, and we all know about like voters' laws and rights and not able to get to the voting booth and things of that nature. So at the end of the day, they're doing more with their platform that's given to do things at the end of the day no one else could do. So once again, it's their right, their First Amendment right. It's like everybody screaming up and down about their Second Amendment right. And if you don't like the rights, at the end of the day, that's your Thank you. That's your own issue that you got to deal with yourself. But again, never allow someone to basically, no matter what they say to you about you, define you. You have one life, it's your life to live. So again, I continue to implore athletes to push forward in that nature. But to wrap that up with a bow, Malcolm Jenkins went to Ohio State University, and when it comes to these coaches or other people, whether it's their players union or whether it's the NFL in general, that these young, talented, courageous athletes that are now doing things in the community on and off the field, where is their support from them? If you want to boycott somebody, boycott those that don't support those that support your voice and your needs. It's 1,900 athletes, white and black. Chris Long donated his entire salary last year, defensive end for the Philadelphia Eagles, to charity and helping causes of people who didn't have it. So once again, when you try to continue to change the story about what's factual and then try to make it to be about something that it's not, I'm the first to, I want to be, to implore you to say, you know what, yes, let's not talk about what others want to talk about and make it be what it is anymore. It's about what it is. It's about social injustice, specifically police brutality for people, not just black people, but people of more poor in communities where they don't have their voices heard. So as soon as we start talking about those things in general, we can move forward. Mr. Massey, no, I don't believe that we should boycott the NFL. Remember, the NFL is 32 owners, and again, people don't realize in this sports business that there's separate entities. You have the players, you have their union, you have the owners, you also have other people that's in broadcast, TV, and so many different components in this business that you have 1,900 young men. These men have foundations and causes. Again, you can go online, find out where they at, contact the business people. You can basically support them, buy their jersey or donate to their charity without actually buying direct TV that gives their money directly to the NFL. At the end of the day, they are the ones that make this league go. I like to talk about flow charts being in business and talk about where this thing actually starts and where it ends. Again, no one is going to, again, regardless of the fact what everybody want to talk about, until 2009, the NFL players did not come out the locker room to the armed forces. The NFL took money from the armed forces to come out and celebrate the national anthem. Until then, everybody was in the locker room. And so now, with that being said, if you take those same players off the field, all of them, and no game is being played, there's no anthem, there's no game, there's no broadcast, there's no TV, there's no halftime show, there's no cheerleaders, there's no sports journalists, there's no vendors, nothing. So at the end of the day, it's not just the athletes that actually are what they're doing playing on the field. They're actually boosting the economy in that actual local community. What people don't understand is that not only do they affect that scenario, but it affects the jobs of what you call the coaching profession. If you're a player and you're a coach and you have no coaches to play, what are you doing? End of the day, again, everybody want to act like coaches are these guys that went and they got their free education and they so well-mannered, they don't curse and swear and spit and say things and do things to athletes that mess them up, and I'm going to get to that point in a second. But at the same time, you basically, or the athletes are the reason why they get a check. So no, everything should be held, everybody should be held accountable individually. And that's what we got to get away from. We got to start getting away from actually pointing at the color at things and look at the acts of the people that's actually doing things. I specifically make sure that, again, when I work with people, regardless of what they do, I look for the best person that can help the athlete based off their integrity, their character, and their merit of work. If I go into a situation simply because of someone's color or someone's gender, then I'm defeating the purpose. I'm actually hurting that actual person I'm trying to support. And in 2018, there's too many things out there technology-wise and too many different things out there that you can use to actually figure out what's what. My company is called Pre-Post Game. We are a sports business management and advisory transition succession planning firm for athletes. So one of our major jobs is to audit, vet, and monitor the people that actually work with the athlete. So at the end of the day, if you're working right by them, again, Malcolm Jenkins is black, Chris Long is white. At the end of the day, what they're both doing is basically bringing awareness to something, trying to help others. Again, that's not a color thing. That's a right and a wrong thing. And if we can start to actually separate the two things, we'd be better. When you allow other people to dictate the narrative by, again, his name needs to be renamed nameless, but at the same time, if you basically want to, again, I know today that a young lady was pardoned, and a lot of people wanted to get into this Kanye West and Kim Kardashian. I apologize, but I don't do none of that stuff. That stuff is pretty beneath where I'm at in my mind, mentally speaking, where you do things tit for tat to try to get people to look at one thing when you do another thing. The reality is that, no, that woman should not have been in jail But at the same time as this actual White House controversy or Eagles controversy is going along, this happens. That's all about ratings. It's all about getting attention. But that's another form of divide as well. Like I said again, thank you, President Trump, for doing that for that woman. There's 1,000 other people that need to have the same scenario done. There's also 1,000 other things that should be done too. So once again, you always hear the expression, two wrongs don't make it right. Back and forth, a tit for tat, eye for an eye. Like I said, at the end of the day, we got to get beyond that. So I just wanted to, again, commend him and get to the second part of this business piece. So regarding the 85. Now, for those of you who don't know, a lot of kids graduated from school, recently, and they all about to get ready to go to their universities. And I have many people ask me questions about should college players be paid, and I say absolutely. But then they talk about, well, it'll be like free agency. I said, what you don't understand is college is already about free agency. I'm gonna explain to you why. So full scholarships, each school, university, particularly in the Power 5 and Division I, you're allowed to get up to 85 scholarships per year. You have to be under that limit. However, what they don't limit you is to say that for every kid, for example, last spring, a kid could have been transferring to a certain school, a kid could have been offered a scholarship from that school. So now that actual roster scholarship might be up to 90 or 95. Unbeknown that once you got to June, they have to be back down to 85, which means is that in the 8th hour, if a kid decides he don't want to go to a certain school, all of a sudden, based off his recruiting number, his star, some school will come out of nowhere, a Big Ten school, a Power 5 school, based off your region, and tell the kid, we want you to come to this school. Now, the kid gets excited based off what he sees on TV, but the reality is that school, that coach, didn't want no parts of the kid. The only thing he wanted a part of, and I talk about the 4 different types of recruiting. There's defensive recruiting, meaning, let's give you an example, Alabama and Auburn. I'm an Auburn recruit, but Alabama is in a high school where I actually recruit to all the time. So Alabama doesn't want me to go there, so they recruit me just because, so I leave. Is their star recruiting, meaning like, again, I'm going to get a bonus if I get a certain amount of, 4 or 5 stars on my roster, which might pay me $200,000, $300,000. That's another type of recruit. The other type of recruit is a regional recruit, meaning like we don't really have any type of recruits that we landed in this area for a long time, but because this is one kid, he might be decent, we don't necessarily want him, but we want to get in that area, so we offer him a scholarship from there. And the last type of recruit is that we really want you to have a plan for you, try to make you successful in the actual place of school, and try to hope to see you successful from there. What these kids don't understand that those 4 different types of recruiting can set you up for success or failure all the time. And because of that scenario, when this actual situation happened now, there's a lot of kids right now that even though there's ones going in at make under 85, there are kids that's being thrown away. Now, meaning thrown away, meaning like, for those you don't know, most of the colleges, and you never talk about this in the recruiting process, talk about the drugs. Meaning when you're a highly recruited athlete, the parents not involved. As a former collegiate athlete and a highly recruited athlete, I tell parents all the time, sex, drugs, and alcohol are the 3 things that most of these athletes are recruited on. And to make a business decision, you can't make a business decision when you're coherent or you're incoherent, or again, if you're misled, or you've done things that, again, as a child, essentially, if you're not 18 years old, you're essentially a child. And if you use some type of solicitation to get that kid to go to that school, those universities, those coaches in particular, especially since you're using, financial aid money to have these guys go on campus and go out and do things like that, you'll get in a lot of trouble. So these are things that parents aren't aware of. A lot of these kids, when they come home, they don't want to tell you that this is actually going on. And at the same time, these schools kind of look the other way, knowing that's what they made the decision based on that scenario. So right now, as all these kids are coming into the school, you got to ask yourself, where's those guys that was there last year? All those kids that last year thought their lives have changed, and all of a sudden they saying things like trust the process, God's plan, and I made it to a Division I school. A lot of these kids have been kicked out as of now. A lot of these unarmed All-American games, we check the numbers, check the facts. You see these guys say, the next 3 to 4 years I'm taking my talents too, and then all of a sudden they no longer to be found. Those universities, those coaches that came and sat in your living room and tell you how much they love you, where's those kids at now? When they basically discard those kids for saying that the kid either didn't make it academically, or he's a problem, or he was taking drugs. What did the school actually do to stop this kid from taking drugs? What parents don't understand is that if you fail a drug test, and a lot of these schools do this three-time policy, meaning like a kid can fail a test 3 times before he's suspended. once again, if my kid has an issue smoking and getting high, he's supposed to be there getting education. What are you doing from a character development university standpoint that's making millions of dollars off of these kids to help them become better men in life? Well, the fact of the matter is, a lot of times they're doing absolutely nothing. A lot of times these kids came to these universities with 4 or 5 stars, knowing, and the coaches in school knowing that they were getting high. But now that when you got that kid that went to that school, that coach now secured a new job, maybe at another university. He secured a bonus from his current job. And so now, a year later, that kid's out of school, that coach has a bonus. He's making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. And then on to the next kid. So the next kid will be going through the same process, unbeknown to the parents that's sending their kid right from there. So once again, I say all the time, sports is not a game. Sports is all business. Parents, when you talk about, getting your kids prepared to go to school and colleges and sending them to camps, do not sign your kids over to a person that they use the term coach simply because you see it on TV. I really, really have to start to really implore parents to stop becoming fans of universities and be parents of your kids. You have to understand, there's not a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid in America that can actually protect themselves against a 35 to 50-year-old man in the college sports in the world today. The reality is the National Letter of Intent, also known as NLI, is a one-way agreement. That one-way agreement says that literally, once you sign it, if you sign it early, is that you can no longer look at other universities. The university can now, as actually you sign with, can now stop marketing you. If your goal is to become a professional athlete, you never want people to stop marketing you. That's business 101. If you're going to say my name, you're going to put up a flyer, you're going to put up a video, you're going to keep doing it as long as you possibly can, in my opinion, in your business opinion. The moment you stop that, they're not going to spend another dime. Why? Because they don't have to anymore. You gave them the right to stop. And now, at the same time, they can also change their mind and give that same scholarship to someone else without telling you until they feel like it. So, like I said, we're talking about groundbreaking, changing scenarios that we're working on here pre-post game along with our colleagues, because at the end of the day, the money that's being generated and the revenues being generated by these colleges is a shame. So it goes back to that whole premise about why do you want to pay college athletes? Well, how many of these college athletes that were 4 and 5 stars that helped get these coaches raises and extensions are now out of school, not getting their free education anymore? NCAA is not reporting that back to you, your parents. And again, if you look around, all those kids in your area that were highly rated at some point, and then you ask their parent, where they at now, a lot of them don't have any answers. But yet, those coaches aren't losing that salary that they got based off that 4 and that 5 star. So yes, so at least if those kids were getting paid and compensated, they would at least have something to try to stay school didn't work out. And like I said again, the greatest athletes in the world don't necessarily need to go to college. College isn't for everyone. Again, we're working on some things again regarding education, character development, transition, succession, business, and helping develop athletes to become who they are when they're not playing the game. That's one of the things that's continued to miss in school is that, right now, if you ask me a question about things in life and business or things that I'm about to try to work towards, why in the world is, for example, if you're an athlete, you have the potential to play pro, that the school you go to right now still don't teach you about taxes. Don't even know you got to pay taxes. Don't know in 2018 the tax code changed. Don't know that if you're going to try to hire an agent this year and you were as a junior last year and you potentially going to be going to the NFL, NBA this year, why don't you actually start investigating the people that you literally might be interested in working in? We do that here at pre-post game. We audit, we vet, we monitor. But if you allow somebody to come to you and tell you that this is what we're going to do, you got to think about this, people. In the sports business, sports is the only business in the world, particularly in this age scenario, where if I'm leaving school tomorrow and I want to go pro, I allow somebody who's supposed to work for me to come in and tell me what I'm going to pay them for their services. I'm going to repeat that. Sports is the only business in the world where I have the value, I'm the product, I'm what's making it happen. But you can come tell me that even though I work for you, you're going to tell me what I'm going to pay you and when. So, again, you leave school and 5 months from now is a draft. You don't know you're going to be the first pick, second, or 255th pick. But you sign a contract giving them all the rights to basically do to you what they want to do. Just because. Like I said again, we have to stop being so in the moment. It's a factual situation when it comes to the psychology of human beings. And again, it goes back to how this college world is set up. Is essentially 87% of people like to follow, meaning no matter what you do in life, they are drawn to follow. That's why when we talk about the workplace environment, how things work, if you basically will bring donuts in or you do certain things and your boss say, oh, thank you, I appreciate that, A lot of times that's all people need, because 87% of people, they enjoy, being subservient to some extent. Then you have the 13% of people that literally are driven. They don't live to be or acquiesce or appease other people. People's thought process of them doesn't matter one way or the other. They don't seek to be validated by who they are character-wise, and that's how these things normally go. So at the end of the day, we got to basically recognize that this is a business, not a game. As I say all the time, sports is not a game. It's all business. And start educating and empower, protect the actual athlete. Sports business and sports athletes in this country is the fastest way to make money in a short amount of time than anything else you can do. Coca-Cola can be worth $300 billion, but even if they have to have 300,000 facilities. They have to have 300,000 employees that cover HR, insurance, health plan, benefits, transition, 401k, health benefits, anything like that. Anything happen. An athlete has an ability basically off his own body and mind, and he takes care of both. And again, if he has the knowledge behind that to generate money, and then at the end of the day, be 30 years old and still become whoever he wants to be and change the world. If you think about it, 5 players in the NBA that make a max salary, which again for the NBA is about 200 and I think next year it'll be 239 million over 5 years is the max salary you can sign. So you think about it, talking about predominantly in particular basketball, African American men. You have the ability to make $239 million over 5 years playing the sport. Guaranteed. Football isn't guaranteed at this time, but at the same time, they make a lot of money too. But you talk about 5 guys, but then 30 years old be worth $1 billion combined before taxes. That's power, and that's knowledge power and opportunity that no one else can get at that amount of time. But yet, what do we do with it? Well, if you pointed at 87%, you allow somebody to tell you what they're going to do with your money, how they're going to do it. Then at the end of the day, you'll end up like Joe Smith, who had over $60 million amassed wealth and went broke. And at the end of the day, on drugs and depressed. But once again, we've seen this story before. All this stuff is documented. So are we getting in this business because we just happy to go along on the ride, and then they end up right back where we started? We are happy to get a college scholarship, even though you don't know what's actually in the scholarship, and you just sign it because they tell you to. And then at the end of the day, when you say you want to be a doctor, you have no way to be a doctor because they don't even have that in their actual program. At the end of the day, what is it? So for those of you that think that these actual coaches care one way or the other whether you sign with you or not, when you guys get offers, they give the same offers to the same people. Again, it has to be 85 filled. And again, I mentioned the 4 different types of recruiting: defensive, regional, they really want you, and star recruiting. That's the way it is. And then when you talk about things such as these places like 247 and Scout and things like that, when they want to have interviews and have relationships with the actual school entities, they're going to basically do right by them because they want to continue to get the gossip or get the news story. So they're not going to tell you nothing different. But you got to know your worth. You got to know what you really can do, what you're capable of. You got to know who's on their roster. You got to know the competition. You got to know the history of their program. Again, you can't say somebody the best ever, and again, talk about pertaining to Alabama championships. That's wonderful. Do you guys know right now Alabama is looking to, as a state, to start segregation again? But you want to send your kid to a school in Alabama and allow someone to make $11 million a year? Did you research that? Like I said again, sports is not a game. Sports is all business. Quick recap. Welcome to the Pre-Post Game Podcast, sponsored by the African American Athlete. My name is Robert T. Green. I'm the CEO of Pre-Post Game at prepostgame.com. I'm also known as the Players Rep, here to educate and empower, protect. For more information on me, you can go to Google, hashtag the Players Rep. You'll see all the stuff that I did specifically, or you can also follow me at the Players Rep 1 on Twitter, Players Rep on Instagram, or also the Players Rep on Facebook. So again, I just wanted to take the time to educate you guys again back on that scenario that out of the 85, it's college free agency has already started. There's a lot of kids right now that this time last year were getting ready to go to college, and already this same time this year, that free education that you signed up for, that they only guaranteed to give you 1 year, these guys are right back where they started. So again, protect yourself, educate yourself, make sure you know what you're doing before you get done. If you're not sure, again, you can contact us at prepostgame.com. Our service, she will give you the answer that you need to know. Tell you what you need to know, not what you want to hear. God bless you guys. Take care.